For years on end, professional athletes have been using their platform to raise awareness and to stand up for things they believe in. Sometimes these are taken the wrong way. And for example, famous women's tennis player Billie Jean King, she was a big advocate for women's rights and for gender equality, and she made that very known. And yes, there was some backlash to it, but she stuck with her what she believed in, and she ended up making a huge change in the country. Um, but when Colin Kaepernick stood up for something he was passionate about, I want to raise awareness for, I feel like he got a really good amount and maybe a bit too much amount of criticism and a lot of backlash. And again, this isn't to say that King didn't get any backlash, but um, I feel like Kaepernick is still dealing with the backlash as he still doesn't have a job in the NFL as a quarterback. Um, Now, the 49ers, or former 49ers quarterback, wasn't the only player to partake in the kneeling, but he certainly was the face of it, and that's why he ended up taking a lot of the hate and a lot of the blame. He was the first to start the protest of kneeling during the national anthem, and that's what put him at the center of all the attention, all the criticism. Now, there were plenty of celebrities and athletes, such as LeBron James and Nick Cannon, that voiced their support on social media for him. But there was plenty of hate, including from our president, Donald Trump. But why there was so much backlash from people was because the United States, President Donald Trump really brought it to attention, and so far as to where the NFL had to create a whole policy to prevent the protests during the national anthem. And my first question was, why was the first response to something raising awareness for racial inequality determined to be disrespectful to our country and people that fight for it and protect it? And where the root of the problem is when people are looking on their TVs and seeing professional athletes, specifically ones of color, kneeling during the national anthem. They automatically jump to the conclusion, yes, this is disrespectful, which I understand. Um, I, I would say, yeah, it's easy to see how someone could jump to that conclusion without really knowing the background. These people are being watched by millions, so every action is analyzed on and off the field. But to give some background, during this time and period in 2016, there was a spike in police brutality. It seemed like every other week there was a new story or headline about a young colored citizen, young person that was getting shot or brutalized by police. And it seemed there was a lot of tension in the country, and this was obvious as it was all over newspapers. It was the headline of everything. It was always at the top of Twitter. And riots even broke out, and there was marches and a lot of controversy. And it was picking up pace, and that is when Colin started to kneel. And he took it upon himself to raise awareness for it and say this is wrong. This shouldn't be happening in our country. And that's when people turned on their TVs and saw him kneeling. And that's where the hate started coming. And he wasn't coming from a place of disrespect. He was coming from a place of awareness and standing for what he believes in. He came out and said he didn't want to stand for a country that didn't treat their citizens right, and that a country that was racially unequal. Now, I feel that when people said this was disrespecting the veterans, I wanted to take a deeper look. So I wanted to see what actual veterans were saying, because yes, people can just come out and say this is disrespectful to veterans, but are you a veteran? So what I did is I did some research, and now I'm not going to sit here and say that all veterans don't think this is disrespectful. I'm sure there's plenty of veterans that do, but I don't also believe that you can say that all veterans think this is disrespectful, because I found various examples of veterans talking about it and saying that this isn't disrespectful. But in specific, a former Marine named Mansour Shams spoke out on the subject. Um, he is a fan of the NFL, and he said, "One of the reasons we put on the uniform is to exercise the democratic right to practice what you wish. I don't take offense because the parties in the NFL have clearly said this is about inequality and racism and not about the troops. I think it's more disrespectful to go up in a rally in Alabama and call some people sons of bitches," he added. "I think that's far more disrespectful." So, what that got me thinking about is, why do veterans go out and defend our country? They're defending our Constitution, they're defending our democracy, and the First Amendment in our Constitution is the freedom of speech. When our founding fathers sat down 300 years ago, they said, let's write a book, a constitution, a book of rules to guide our country. And the first thing they decided to write was freedom of speech, because that is how, one of the big factors in how our democracy is glued together on freedom of speech and people's freedom to speak their voice and stand for what they believe in. And athletes should be able to use their platforms to spread awareness and stand up for what they believe in, just as any person has the right, and that's protected by the Constitution. That's what makes this country such a great country, because we can participate in marches, we can go and we can tweet about what we believe in and raise awareness for things. And we're lucky to be able to speak our voices, because many people around the world can't do so. But Colin Kaepernick, as well as other professional athletes, should be able to do this as well. Kneeling during the national anthem isn't a sign of disrespect. It's more of a respect for what our country stands for and what we're built upon.